Good evening, everybody. We're going to deal today with a topic which is a collection of a number of lessons which deal with the essence of a person. When we deal with this essence, we want to speak about three main points. On one side, there's the body, which is the physical aspect, the neshama, which is the spiritual aspect, and between the soul and the body, the neshama and the guf, there's a part called the tzelem. Today, since they asked me to talk about the wisdom of reading faces, wisdom of the face, we're going to speak mostly about the physical part. But obviously, if a person relates to the chokhmas haparzuf, which is reading faces, it's trying to understand what you could see from the outside, from the physical part of a person, to understand about his spirituality. Since there's a medium point between the soul and the body, and the Ramchal calls this ziva panim, meaning that through the face you could see what a person is. You could see who the person is through his face. As the rabbis say, Chazal say, that a kala whose eyes look good, then the whole body doesn't need to be checked, because you could know about her through just through her eyes. And Moshe David Valley, which is a student of the Ramchal, writes in his sefer that after the age of 40, a person can't really complain about the way he looks. After 40, the way he looks is a result of the his internal aspects, his neshama. Just to explain this, I had a friend who was chozer b'tshuva, and he was a dentist, and he said, through the teeth I can understand who the person is. I can understand about the person. And I asked him, what does that mean? And he said, like an angry person who, like, every time he drives in a car and every time someone cuts him off, he gets really upset. He grinds his teeth. You could see his back teeth, and they're all grinded. They're all ground up. So I said to him, you're right, but it's not just about the teeth. There's a lot of parts of the body that could teach you about the internal parts of the person. There's you can understand through looking at a person's eyes all of his medical problems. There's a whole wisdom about it. Or ideology. Somebody once, one Hungarian man found some kind of bird, and he was very sick, and he looked inside his eye and he saw all sorts of little brown dots, and took care of him. He made him better, he helped him get better, and he saw the dots went away. So he understood there was a connection between the health of a person and the person's eyes. So he developed this whole science connecting the eyes and a person's general health. There's a different type of wisdom that through the ears you can understand everything about the person, and through poking in certain places on the ears you could take care of a person. You could heal him. There's reflexology that everyone knows about, that through the feet a person can understand where a person's holding, how a person feels. There's this little like dots that you have to straighten out, and at the same time you're able to help the body. There's this map here. According to the foot, you could see what's going on in the body. I'm an expert, for example, in looking at fingernails, and according to fingernails I could see what's going on in his body. Every fingernail speaks about a different part of the body. The pinky speaks about the bris and the legs. I was in Japan for a number of years, and in Japan if somebody wants to say that he has a girlfriend, he lifts up his pinky finger, and that's the way of saying it's his girlfriend. So the next finger relates to the kidneys. The next one is the tchol and the lavlav. The next finger is the lungs, and the thumb relates to the head and the liver. It's interesting. If you look at the fingernails, you'll see there's some where they have lines that go up and down, some lines that go right and left, and some that have different dots or spots in them. So, for example, if you look at this finger of mine, you'll see there's a certain indent in a certain part of the fingernail, and this is because when I was 3 years old, I had inflammation of the kidneys. And specifically my right kidneys that were more damaged than the left-hand side, and that's why on my right fingernail I have this indent in my fingernail. Lines that go from right and left, those teach us that a person has inside of a person a certain type of wetness that's damaging him in that part of the body. I was at a certain place once. There was an expert in fingernails, and somebody came and showed him his hand. He was a man about 45, 50, and the doctor says to him, "You had a trauma when you were born. Some dangerous thing happened." And he said, "You're right." He said, "When I was born, the umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck, and you can see that the doctor could see this. Even 45, 50 years later, you could see through the fingernails if something happened recently. From the place that it comes out in the fingernail until the end, it takes about half a year. And from where the line or indent there is, you could see you could see when it happened. So the fingernails teach a lot about a person. The tongue, can also teach a person. You can understand all about a person based on the color of the tongue and different other aspects about the tongue, the shape of the tongue. Some people have white tongues or black tongues. People that get chemotherapy get black tongues. Sometimes we have a very exacting map of the tongue. Most tongues have a line that go down the middle that divide this tongue into two, and this line relates to the spinal cord. And if a person has a problem in the spinal cord, like if the spinal cord is a bit bent, or if he has pains in a certain part, so exactly at that part, where the tip of the tongue relates to the top of the spine, and the back of the tongue relates to the bottom of the spine, and according to where the line is on this spinal part of the tongue, I could tell you where a person has a problem in his back. It's interesting to see that this thing there's two aspects to it. One thing is that there are lines, there are deep lines sometimes, and these deep lines teach us about facts, genetic facts about a person, like the way he is inherently, and not deep lines tell us about things that change all the time. Same thing with palm reading. There are some lines that are very deep that teach us about genetic or the way the person is from when he was born, and there's some more thinner, not such deep lines that change all the time. The person who goes into studying, you could see the line of intelligence goes up, and you could see from day to day these things change. So there's some things that are decided from when he was born about him. They were decided, and hopefully in this shiur or maybe in later shiurim we're going to explain how these things are decided for his destiny based on his parents, how the parents draw down a holy neshama to the son. In any case, each person has different factors that he received from when he was born, and he has to deal with those factors. But in depth, really, he did choose them, because before he came into this world, he agreed and he signed that he'll come into this world according to this way in this body, with all of its with the nature, because this nature is the best thing that's for a person to come to his tikkun. A person come to his tikkun at best for this gilgul based on his body and his nature. The Goyim sometimes call it karma, or we call it destiny, things that we brought from previous lives. And the Zohar calls this midas yamai, the length of my days. This is like the package that a person comes into this world, the things that are going to happen to him, and things that he has to fix up, and things that he has to deal in here in this world. Okay, this was the general principle, but now I want to go into the details. When I say me, Who am I referring to? I'm speaking to you now. Who of me is speaking to who of you? Is my body speaking to your body? Is my neshama speaking to your neshama? What is speaking to what? No, you already decided that the soul speaks to the soul. It's not so simple. I want to elaborate. For example, if you say my body is speaking, so you know that the body, every one of the cells of the body, an adult has about 100 trillion cells. Each trillion is 1,000 billion, each billion is 1,000 million. So, and this body refreshes every 7 years, refreshes every single cell. All the old cells die, and the new ones are created. A person's a completely new person. Now, scientists understand that the cells have a type of memory, and if a person's 40 and a new cell is created, this new cell is 40. The new cell that's created isn't a baby cell. Isn't really a baby cell. If we were able to make the new cells very young, then we would be able to live very long or be very young. There's a joke that a person met his parents in the airport, and his mother comes really pretty, looking like she's 20, going with a baby carriage, and his son says to the mother, What's going on with you? And then she says, listen, in America they made this medicine, you drink it and you become young. And the son said, so who's this baby inside the carriage? And she says, oh, it's your father, he drank the whole bottle. So the body refreshes every 7 years. And on neshama also, we can't say that it's exactly the same neshama the whole time. If I were to say that I could divide a person into 3. Let's say a person is 40. So you could divide them into, you could take one person that's a 40-year-old, one person that's a 25-year-old, and one person that's 18-year-old, and put all these 3 people inside a room. The same person, according to the way he was in these different ages. What do you think will happen in this room? There'll be fights. Why? Because usually I am a development of what I didn't want to be. Meaning, like all the things that I did wrong, and I decided never to do, I decided very strongly never to do it ever again. And now when I see, when I see myself younger doing all these wrong things, it's very difficult. It's very hard for us. Where do we find this? Mainly with our children. You find a person with a lot of children, let's say you have 7 children. One kid might do something wrong, you'll say, okay, nothing wrong. Maybe, let's say he broke a vase. That's not a big deal. We'll buy a new one. If a different son does that, you get really upset at him. You say, always you're the one that does this, that makes all these, breaks everything. Why with one you get along, with the other one you don't get along? What does it seem like to you? The one that you're angry with, he's the one that you're most similar to him. So mushal to two camels that go in the street, and one says to the next, how do you go with a sack on your back? Another one says, wait, you're also with a sack? He's like, yeah, but mine is a sporty one. So person, everything that he did, he can forgive himself from far away, like after he finished doing it. But when he sees his son doing it now, or a woman seeing it by her daughter, that upsets her the most. The thief will say to his son, I stole all my life, you should be a professor, you shouldn't steal, you should never steal. A person can never stand seeing his children going in the same mistakes that he himself did. You can't be mechanech somebody. You can't come with a cigarette and say to your son, oh, if I find you with a cigarette, it's going to be really bad for you. The main thing in chinuch, in raising children, is being a proper example. If you have a good example, they're going to follow you. If you're not a good example, they're going, then the fear might be able to keep them in line till they're maybe 15 or 16, but afterwards it for sure won't help. Also, the neshama changes, not just the body. The Zohar says that we have a body. The body is like a vessel, and there's a neshama that's inside this body. And this neshama itself is dynamic. The neshama is not just inside the body. What does it do? The neshama goes through the body. Like the Ramchal says, what is vision? He says the neshama gets to the eyes. We see like in a movie. You see many pictures in front of you, And every time the neshama goes through, makes a circle and gets to the eyes, you see one picture. And when it goes around, you see another picture. When it goes around, you see another picture. Once I dealt with an older man, and when he was younger, he said that he was on a fishing boat, and he went into the freezer for a moment, and the freezer closed on him, and he died. Got to a clinical death, and they saved him at the last moments. They took him out, and he was in a coma for a long time, and he got better after a while. So he told me that a lot of times he sits and he sees people walking slowly, and all of a sudden he sees that everything goes really quickly. Looks like everything's running really fast. And his mind runs really fast. Something happened with him that the neshama now, instead of going in the right speed, all of a sudden goes into ultra mode and super fast. This is not a simple problem to deal with. And I guess we see people that with their nature, they're very, very relaxed. If a scud falls outside of the door, they ask who's there. Most relaxed kind of person in the world, separated. Another person is very active. He's always ready to fight. Different types of people. The neshama is standing in a different type of way inside the body. So to say that I am the neshama, it's also not so simple. What you could say in general is that for sure the neshama is speaking to your neshama, my neshama is speaking through your neshama, through my body and through your body. You have to understand how it rests, how the neshama rests inside the body. The relationship between the neshama and the body, how it happens. And this is a topic that a lot of ink has been spilt on it, and we're going to touch the tip of this topic. Rabbi Moshe David Valley says, why is after 40 years old a person is responsible for the way he looks? He says it's simple, because the blood is the nefesh. The physical place that's the closest to the neshama is the blood. He says we have a principle in purifying vessels that when a vessel is busy absorbing, it's not able to excrete. And when it's excreting, it's not able to swallow any type of essence that's stuck inside the walls of the pot. Otherwise, you'd never be allowed to kasher anything, because when you put it into a pot to kasher it, it would swallow its own tumah. Chazal explained to us that when it's spitting out, it doesn't also swallow. And same thing the other way around. What happens? A young person, he's full of taivas. He runs, let's say he was running after his taivas all the time. What's happening? He's swallowing and swallowing and swallowing all sorts of tumah. At 40 years old, he's not able to continue running beforehand. He's not able to continue running. There's a story about two old people that sat in a garden, and one says to the next, "You remember we used to run after a woman?" Another one says, "Yeah, I remember that we used to do it, but I don't remember why." It means to say that the Yetzer Hara goes and gets weaker after a while. And the person, instead of swallowing, he starts spitting out, because he's not able to swallow anymore. He just changes from the swallowing to spitting, to excreting. What happens is, the excretion comes from the inside out. And the blood reaches every part of the body, and he starts changing the way he looks based on his spiritual status. An angry type of person, you could see the way he's on his face. The person's thinking, you could see it on his face. There are a lot of things that change in the face, and you can't come to say, why am I like this? Why are you like this? First blame yourself, and afterwards come to complain to Hashem. Chas v'shalom. At the end of the day, a person builds the way he looks in such a way that you could say a person's biography is his biology. This is one way of on a physical aspect. More than that, more important than that, is that a biography of a person is going to be his chalukah d'Rabbanan, the spiritual garment that he's going to be dressed in, and with that he's going to get his schar or onesh, reward or punishment, in the world to come. But more than that, we're going to see all the sicknesses that we could think of are as a result of this. Now let's explain this with a mashal. You know that the person is similar to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is the Holy Land. Let's see how it looks. In Eretz Yisrael we have the Kinneret, and from there the Yarden comes out and reaches to the Dead Sea. New water goes into the Kinneret. The leftovers come out into the Yarden River. That was before they started giving the water to the Yarden. And then it goes down to the Dead Sea. In any case, the head of the person is the head, and then there's the spine. Now we know that in a person's mind, in a person's head, there's Chochmah, Bina, and Das. Exactly what it is, it's a very long explanation. There's a difference between Chochmah, Bina, and Das. In Hebrew, there are no real synonyms. This is a non-Jewish invention of synonyms. Every word in Hebrew, there are, like, for example, there's all sorts of different words about happiness. Each word refers to different types of happiness. Happiness because of song, or happiness because of dancing, or because of some other type of external thing. Each word has its own aspect to it. Even though they may be similar, there's something different. Chochmah, Bina, and Das are three different things, completely different. Chochmah is the original concept. The Bina is the expansion of that concept, and Das is connecting the mind to the heart. Bringing it from your mind to your heart, then you know it. Then you connect to it. So about relating to the Chochmah, there's a certain river called Chatzban that goes into the Kinneret, and they both start with Ches. And about the relations to the Bina, there's another river called Banyas, and about the third river is Dan. There's a river called Dan the three rivers that go into the Kinneret. And they start with Ches, Beis, Dalet, which is start with Chochmah, Bina, and Das. The same first letters. So in our mind we have consciousness and unconsciousness.